And there are no public speakers for public comment tonight.
Okay. Well, hi everybody. Good to see you. Before we get started, I wonder if Elena is here today, our new commissioner. Okay, I guess I don't see Elena. That's fine. So why don't we move on to approval of the meeting notes from last time? Has anyone gotten the chance to look that over? Okay, are there any changes that need to be made to the meeting minutes? Okay,
I
Can I
move
have a
we
motion
approve
to
the, I
approve?
move we approve the notes.
I'll second it.
Okay, great. Now I think we have to do roll call to approve the notes. So let me pull up the roll call.
The chat will not serve as that opportunity. All public comments must be shared verbally or the
Sorry.
Katie, I don't think we don't have to vote on the,
We don't have to vote on minutes. Okay, that's fine.
I mean, unless there's changes or somebody that wants to make.
Okay. Okay, well, with no issues, then we can just approve the minutes. Moving on to the first agenda item, which is it the Hotel Pentagon? Let me check.
Correct.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, great. Great. Do we have a staff presentation today?
I am here, and I apologize. This is Sarah Pizzo. I am the Housing Development Supervisor. For the first time in my life, I just had Teams drop me 6 times in a row. So I'm calling in from my phone. I don't know what's going on. So I'm going to be off camera for a minute, unfortunately. But yeah, so Alex McMillan is a staff member who worked on this project, but I'm filling in for him tonight. And I'm going to first let the developer present the project to you, and then I'll provide a quick summary of the housing program afterwards. So with that, I will turn over to the applicant.
Great, thank you. My name is Zach Williams. I'm a land use attorney with Venable. I'm representing the developer tonight. And joining me are Devin Perry with Rockefeller Group and Matt Bailey with Crescent Communities, who will be assisting me with the presentation. We have some other folks from the development team on as well, who may jump in depending on the Q&A. With that, I do have a short presentation that I can go over before we get into the discussion. If I can go ahead and share my screen, I'll do that. Okay. Okay. Can everyone see my screen? Great. So this project is located at 2480 South Glebe Road. And as I mentioned, it's a joint development project with Crescent Communities and Rockefeller Group. And we have representatives from both here tonight to assist with the presentation. So before we get into the project, the first thing we wanted to mention was the Lomax AME Zion Church, which is a neighbor of the site and has played a very important role in the process. This is, for folks that are not aware, familiar, this is a historic church. It has a long history. At one point, Martin Luther King Jr. gave a speech in the parking lot of this church. It's notable for its architecture, notable for its history, and because of that, it's played a really important role in the process. And a lot of things that have gone into this project and the thinking on this project have been with the church in mind and with the intent of respecting the church and its historic presence. So the first thing I want to touch on is the process. This has been a long process to get to where we are today. It started with the 4-mile run plan, a small area plan. The new plan that started in December 2015 was eventually approved several years later. Then this project followed. This project was initially filed in 2023 following some concept submissions. And that brings us to where we are today. You can see here the timeline of the project. There has been, the project's been in the pipeline for over a year. There's been quite a few community meetings and meetings with the church, meetings with other stakeholders to get to where we are today. So just to get into the project now, this is the existing project site. It's comprised of 2 existing hotels, the Hotel Pentagon and a Comfort Inn. It's located along 24th Road and South Glebe Road. You can see here in this diagram where the church is located, just to the west of the site, the neighbor there. And here you get a sense for the area of the site and the site area that's to be developed. Here are some photographs of the existing conditions of the site showing the Hotel Pentagon in these photographs. It's a low-rise hotel. You can actually see the church in the background in the top right corner, top right picture. There are some additional slides showing existing conditions. There you see the Comfort Inn and additional pictures of the existing Hotel Pentagon site. Some additional photographs of existing conditions. And now turning to the development project itself. So in summary, the site is about 5.5 acres. The project proposes 531 multifamily housing units split between 494 apartments and 37 townhomes. There will also be 549 parking spaces as part of this project. So as I mentioned with the church, this project has been designed from the beginning with the neighbors in mind, and the most important neighbor being the Lomax AME Zion Church, given its proximity to the project again and the history of the site. So here you can see the existing buildings, the distance from that church, and this lays the context for the site that I'll be showing here in the next couple of slides. You can also see in the bottom left-hand corner of that picture where the church is located in the cemetery as well, the historic cemetery vis-a-vis. This project was developed in compliance with the 4 Mile Run Area Plan, which was approved just a few years ago. One of the important guidelines in that plan was to respect the church and a buffer from the church, which this project does deliver. You can see here that the project footprint is set back considerably from the church cemetery and the church building as called for in the plan. And there's some significant public space that's going to be added, which we'll show in a little bit more detail here shortly. Here's a section view of the project, again showing the church, the cemetery, and then the buffer from that cemetery and church. You can also see here these dotted red lines show the height and density that could be built under the 4 Mile Run Area Plan. And as you can see here, the building is pulled significantly back from that church and cemetery, respecting the historic nature, the historic property there, and adding quite a bit of public space as well. So that's one of the primary community benefits of this project, which we'll talk about a little bit more, is that buffer, the addition of public space, really beautifying the area. Here's some additional renderings of the streetscape that's proposed, comparing to the existing condition on the left with the proposed streetscape on the right. And to get your bearings, you can see that gate into the church cemetery in each photograph. As you can see, it's a significant change in condition, where you have currently a sort of below grade driveway on the existing hotel site will be replaced with an at grade public space that will be beautified with foliage. As you can see here in these renderings, there will also be a partial new road built here alongside the building. And again, the important point is the building is set back considerably from the church site. Here's just another rendering of the proposed project vis-a-vis the church site. And here again, you can see that public space that's being added to the area here, the buffer between the church cemetery and the project. That is, as you can see, a lot of work has gone into that. There's quite a bit of detail. It's really meant to be sort of the primary community amenity of the site, and it's designed as such. Here's another rendering of that public space. Just to be clear, that will be there'll be a public access easement over that space. So that's not a private amenity, that's a public amenity for the use of the public, the use of the church members and other folks in the vicinity. Here's just another rendering of some of the foliage that's proposed for that space. As I mentioned, it's been designed with great detail to really create an attractive place, really a place that that you would want to be as a member of the public or a neighbor in this community. Just some additional renderings there of that public space. Some additional renderings with some flowering trees. And finally, one more rendering looking at it from a little bit of a bird's eye view, looking back at the project as proposed. So I mentioned the spaces as a really important community benefit. It's not the only community benefit. There are a number of others listed here. I'm not going to read through all of them, but we certainly can talk about them if there are questions. For purposes of this meeting tonight, the project includes a $2 million contribution as part of the base density affordable housing contribution, and 9 on-site committed affordable units, which we'll talk a little about in a little bit more detail. There's also quite a few family size units in this building, which we'll get into as well in a minute. So on affordable housing, as I touched upon, initially, well, we have the base affordable housing contribution, which folks are familiar with as part of any site plan. In this case, the contribution is a little bit over $2 million. And then there's a bonus affordable housing contribution. Initially, this site, in discussions with staff, was going to deliver just 7 CAFs on site. Following Planning Commission, that's now been increased to 9. So 2 additional units have been added to the site, affordable units. And importantly, most of these units are family size units. So 2 and 3 bedroom units, as you can see here, with an average size of 1,354 square feet. So sizable units, family size affordable units are going to be committed to here. Another thing to note is that apart from the caps, the market rate units themselves are going to be delivering a significant number of family-sized units. 46% of the units will be with units that are either 1 bedroom and a den up to 3 bedroom townhomes. The average square feet of these types of units is over 1,400 square feet. And so a significant portion of the project will be delivering these larger units as well. Finally, there was another recent project similar to this one in the sense that it was approved recently. And we note that only in that project, the Red Line Inn, there was a displacement of 28 existing marks, and those were replaced with the new development. In this project, there's no displaced housing. This is a hotel that's being redeveloped. And so there is a net increase on this site of 15 affordable housing bedrooms. And as we talked about already, a significant number of housing units and larger multifamily housing units as well. And that is the final slide of my presentation. And so I will stop there. And our team is here and available for questions and discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. So I forgot to mention, but if we have any people who have public comment related specifically to Hotel Pentagon, we can do that now.
We will do a quick staff remarks, and then we have 3 people signed up for public comment.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Again, this is Sarah Pizzo, Housing Development Supervisor. I'm going to go over the housing contribution again, similar to what you just heard, but adding a few finer points as well. So the first portion of the contribution, again, relates to the affordable housing requirements in the base, and that will translate to an approximately $2 million cash contribution or 10 on-site units, 15 off-site units nearby, or 20 off-site units anywhere in the county. So one thing to note is that this would be the largest affordable housing ordinance contribution on the base in probably about 2 years. And this is due in large part to the large amount of base density, which is nearly 500,000 square feet. So if the developer chooses to provide a cash contribution, we'll also note that these funds will be leveraged to preserve and create new affordable housing in the future. So base contribution of about 2 million to the county could leverage about 17 to 18 CAFs at a new construction project in the future. And those CAFs would typically have 75 to 99 years of affordability. The second part of the affordable housing contribution, again, is that related to the bonus density. And to achieve that earned density, the applicant is committed to make a contribution of the 9 CAFs, which again is an increase in 2 since this past week. And this consists of 4 one-bedroom units, 4 two-bedroom units, and 1 three-bedroom unit. These CAFs will serve incomes up to 60% AMI for a minimum of 30 years. So also wanted to highlight some of the goals, objectives, and policies of the county's affordable housing master plan that this program meets, and that includes constructing 9 CAFs through land use and zoning policy, including 5 family-sized units, including 2 type A accessible CAFs, locating on a primary transit network, and achieving LEED Gold certification for all buildings, which is furthering the goals of the community energy plan. So in summary, staff recommends approval of the affordable housing program, which meets a number of these county affordable housing policies and includes 9 on-site units. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. So before we get into questions and discussion with the commission, why don't we go into public comment now?
So our first speaker is Ann Bodine.
Oh, hi, thanks. Do you have slides for me?
I do. 1 second.
Thank you so much.
And you have 3 minutes. So you can begin.
Okay, hi. I've sent you the slides and also a video. I hope you've had a chance to watch. I'm Ann Bodine from Arlington for a Sustainable Future. Next slide. Little context for this project. Arlington is now 62% white. Green Valley, however, is a historic African-American area. It's home to Lomax AME Zion Church, visited by MLK the day before his I Have a Dream speech. It is still diverse, only 52% white, 21% Black, and 21% Hispanic. Isn't it your mandate to assure we keep such diversity in our housing? Next slide. Next slide again. I'm going to skip a few slides because of time. Sorry, it's taking a bit to load. So go one more slide. Thank you. Here we see that Black home ownership, sorry, go back one. Sorry. On the previous slide, we see that Black home ownership has plummeted from 57% in 2000 to 27% in 2020 in 3 key African-American neighborhoods, including this one, in only 20 years. Can we not talk about the real causes and look to resolve gentrification? Next slide. I'm going to go ahead one more again. I hope you have a chance to go back and look at these. One more to slide 7. Okay. This slide shows statistics from the Affordable Housing Master Plan Implementation Report of 2022. And I'd like you to laser focus in on where the gap is and where the glut is. The gap lies at 50% of AMI and below. The glut is at all levels above. So we have a surplus at levels above 50% of AMI. But that's where this project comes in, at the area that has a glut. And this project has only 9 affordable units out of 531, which is an inconsequential number. It is a tragedy to see that a project like this, which is adding 23% of the total housing stock of this neighborhood, is delivering a seismic impact on the neighborhood and is not responsive to our greatest need. Remember, the overall county goal is 17% affordable units. And in this project, that would mean 90 CAFs. How can we be so far off the mark? Next slide. This shows projected rents for a 2-bedroom at this complex based on other comps. It also shows who can most likely afford these, considering median household incomes by race and ethnicity. You can see how far below the affordability line is for median Black incomes in Arlington right now. This is in a historically Black neighborhood next to a nationally famous Black church. Next slide. I'm going to stop here and ask for this project to be scaled way down to no more than 324 units. Make the developer align the street along the future access to Shirlington Road and make him maintain the curb cuts at Glebe. We want 12 units affordable at 50% AMI and 12 affordable at 60% of AMI. Even so, that's not even 10%. And the developer should be, in our opinion, providing a 20% affordable housing contribution, because this involves a GLUF change, as I'm sure you are aware. I'm going to close by sharing with you excerpts from the pastor of Lomax AME Zion that I sent you in the video. He pleaded with the Planning Commission on Monday not to go ahead with this proposal. He cited issues of traffic, inadequate community benefits, and laughable affordable housing. Resigned to an apparent upvote by the commission, he compared his flock to David, observing that the county doesn't really care about
Your time
affordable
is up.
housing. Thank you very much.
Who's the next public commenter?
Sorry, I'm working on it. My computer is acting a little weird. Sorry. Sorry, I'll just call the person. It's not seeming to work for me here.
If it makes
Judith
it
Davis.
easier for you, Judith Davis is here.
Judith Davis, please. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I don't have any slides, any fancy slides like Ann Bodine, but would like to pick up where she left off and stress the point that this current plan does not take into consideration whatsoever the nature of the historical, valuable neighborhood that Green Valley is, and is entirely disregarding its current needs and issues. We are not focused on ensuring that there's community sustainability. We're not modeling realistic frameworks, and we're not ensuring that we're adding infrastructure along the lines of traffic. Traffic is a nightmare now. I don't want to imagine what it will be like with 531 units and whatever cars come along with that, and how much traffic will then be shot into Green Valley based on what we have right now. That is the most unrealistic plan I have ever seen. There are no community benefits along the lines of recreation or storefronts, daycare. There is no intent whatsoever to pour resources into the currently struggling school. And I said this before, and I'm going to say it again. Tenants of these units will probably have the economic latitude to send their kids wherever they please to send them, and won't be sending their kids to the Drew Elementary School that we have now. And I just don't see any efforts to ensure that this is a collaborative effort between county developer and the community. I have seen on the PowerPoint slide that community conversations and engagement has taken place. I am very engaged in my community. I am a community organizer. I have only seen one presentation. It was very short. There was minimal Q&A, and currently we are being insulted by being told, well, if we give you a little greenery, if we allow you to use a private access road, if we allow you to use a community center once a quarter, that should do it. That's not how you build community. That's not how you show respect for a historically Black community that has been chronically overlooked, underestimated, and undervalued. The currently marginalized residents, including senior citizens and families with young school-age children, are not factored into this. They can't afford Arlington now, and they will be pushed out of Arlington for sure with this monstrous building towering over everything Green Valley and basically swallowing it whole. I motion for this project to be halted and for conversations to be reimagined, to reimagine what this may look like, and so that we can have a win-win scenario for all, not just for the developers. That is it. I have a lot more, but I know I'm out of time. Thank you.
Next speaker is Frederick Craddock. Frederick Craddock, are you here?
Bill, do we know the phone number that has their hand raised, who that is?
I do not know, sorry.
Are they muted, or I see an icon that looks like it says that they can't speak, but
I will try and allow the mic.
if that's Frederick.
Frederick Craddock, are you able to hear us?
Yes, I can hear, but can you hear me?
We
Yes.
can hear you now, yes. So please
Okay,
go
thank
ahead.
you.
You have 3 minutes.
Thanks a lot. I'm Frederick T. Craddock, and I'm a 30-year resident on South 24th and Glebe Roads. This is the site where this proposed hotel will be turned into residential. And the concern I'm hearing throughout Green Valley, and I'm hearing this grocery stores, post offices, barbershops, is that the project as it is proposed is too large. It's difficult to get in and out of this project as proposed. There's only one point of ingress, egress, and there's a concern throughout the community is what are the benefits for residents of Green Valley? And we know some of the benefits for overall Arlington, but the concern is with many is that historically we've been restricted into only Green Valley and other black enclaves, Johnson Hill, Halls Hill, but now it appears that we're being restricted out because look at the offerings of affordable units. Yes, there's a few affordable units offered, but if you look at income points, this would be difficult for individuals now in Arlington, many individuals, to be able to move into this area. Let alone, what about our senior citizens that have had roots in South Arlington? There is really no opportunity for them to even consider, upgrading or moving into retirement and maybe moving into a rental status. So this project at the scale doesn't really meet the concerns of the county and the neighbors of Green Valley in terms of equity. So we feel that there should be more discussions about ingress, egress, more discussions about affordable units, and more instructions and more conversation on how accessible this will be for neighbors. You may have heard from the Reverend Nelson at Lomax AME Zion Church, the church that is adjacent to this project. Beyond their concerns with excavations, there could be some issues with the integrity of this cemetery, and this cemetery dates back to the early 1900s. So there's a concern there. But primarily, what and where will the affordable housing be? And largely, it is felt that we should really have this discussion. We hear throughout Arlington, yes, we need housing, but we don't really hear the prefix. Where's affordable housing? Where's housing that will be affordable to people who live here and maybe want to upgrade? And then how will that be attractive to new residents, new families that have a desire to live in South Arlington or anywhere throughout Arlington? So I think that conversation needs to get really moved to the forefront. You'll hear the word often, gentrification. Well, this could very well be an example of that, but I would have to wonder, living here for 30 years, what would the quality of life be in a project like that is in some ways very dense? If you're looking at 37 townhomes, and then you're looking at about an 8-story building. So we should really move back and really talk about this in its totality. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you, Katie, for filling in for me. Apologies that I was late. I got confused and thought this meeting was in person and went to the county building and had to go back home. So thank you for the public comment and the presentation. I was the SPRC representative for this project, and I know I missed, I think, the very beginning of the presentation from the developer. But I did have some questions about some things that were raised during the SPRC process. But I'm happy to have Joe go ahead with the first question on the project, if he would like.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
Okay.
Please.
So I know there was a lot of discussion about the second access road. I think there's another property who owns or another person who owns the property where that road would go through, and there was a lot of concern about without adding. I think it would lead to like Shirlington Road. That the traffic for this project would just like really back up on the existing sort of entryway. And my understanding was that staff did not support this sort of the second access point. If someone could talk a little bit more about that and how we got to just the one access point that is proposed now, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, and I can take that as well. Yeah, so as you mentioned, yes, staff certainly recommended the single egress ingress into the site coming off of 24th Road, and that was for several different reasons. Primarily, the access onto Glebe posed several different issues, which we can get into, but primarily they were safety and just exacerbating traffic along Glebe as well. But staff also recommended to us that they wanted to, because I think this is a priority of theirs. I certainly don't want to speak to their viewpoint here, but it sounds like consolidating curb cuts is a primary focus for them. So that's why we ended up with one coming off of 24th there. We also think that also not only creates a safer space along 24th and just a cleaner environment on 24th, both for pedestrians and vehicular traffic, but it also helps with the traffic mitigation as well. So we see that a single point of ingress to be a win-win, not only for our project, but for the community as well.
The access to Shirlington Road then?
I can speak to that.
Okay, thank you.
So, and then the other piece of that was the access to the future connection to Shirlington Road. And so just to be clear, our MMTA and our studies and everything that was presented to Transportation Commission that received approvals does not include the construction. I want to make sure I say this right. It does not. It was approved as is with our proposed mitigations. And then when that future development redevelops and we do build that connection, that's just another added bonus in the future. And then just again, I just wanted to voice that we've heard a lot of concerns about the traffic impact, and we are aligned in that sense. And we are going to, based off of our conversations last week, include additional studies more than the requirements for a 4.1 project, just to make sure that the report is still accurate and says what it's going to do, and it proves out. And if not, it'll be our responsibility to work together with the community to resolve anything.
Thank you. Appreciate that update. I know another area that came up, and I had voiced some concerns about this, was the Green Valley Civic Association had talked about how they felt like this project wasn't really evoking the character and the legacy of the neighborhood, and that it seemed like it was just a new development project that was happening in Green Valley that had nothing to do with Green Valley. And despite the fact that you have this historic church next door where you had Martin Luther King Jr., give a speech, can you talk about what has been done since that first SPRC meeting to address some of the community concerns around, does this really fit into the neighborhood? Well, when people are around interacting with this building, are they going to walk away with a sense of like important history happened right next door and this is part of Green Valley? That would be helpful to know what, if anything, you all have done since those concerns and questions were raised a couple months ago to this point.
Yeah,
Matt,
yeah, I could. You want to take it?
can I go first?
Yeah, of course. I can feel it.
So a couple of things were done, and definitely when we heard that, that just amplified our desire to get more integrated with the community and try to reach out to more voices, because we understand that there are a lot of stakeholders at play with this project, and we don't want we don't want anyone to feel that way. So I think when they walk through the project, when it is constructed, everyone will be able to see visually the streetscape improvements. I think that's at a forefront, just creating a walkable community, just extending Green Valley towards Glebe. And I think another thing that we're excited for is we have the opportunity to use art, and whether that's on our site or at the Lomax's church's site, they're amendable to it. If it gets approved, we think it would be really great to celebrate Green Valley, Lomax, everybody together. And we also have the intentions for that winding trail, the public park will have educational markers throughout that. So we don't continue to stop the conversation. We want to continue the conversations and keep getting more ideas from as many people as we possibly can.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I was talking to the chair of the planning commission earlier this week about, some of these concerns. And I think in general, one of the challenges that we have in Arlington is that we've erased a lot of Black history in our community, and that we've paved over it, we've built on top of it, and we don't do anything to really preserve what has happened and come before. And it's a struggle to make sure that history and that culture, that people know that that's a part of the current community, but also what's happened in the past. And I think of things like in Met Park, we have the Queen City sort of memorial, like art sculpture and things. But that's one thing. And we have very few of that throughout the county and our community. It would be nice if, the applicant could commit to doing something that really helps that, working with Green Valley, working with the church, to make sure that there's something that stands out as like, this is something we're excited about. This is something that really speaks to who Green Valley is, and reflects the community and what they want to showcase for their neighborhood. I don't see that in the plans for the building right now. And I don't know exactly where that would go, but that's kind of what I was hoping to see, something that says like, we want people who are entering, into the Green Valley neighborhood from this new access point with this new development to feel like this is actually Green Valley, and that what does that mean for our community in a way that I don't see currently. And I don't know if that's something that comes after this process. But it would be really great to have that commitment to like continue working with the civic association, with community leaders, with the church, to figure out like how you guys can essentially fund and maintain something that helps show that for the community. And I know that's not going to resolve all of the concerns and issues that have been raised. But I just feel like we overlook that so often in our community, and we don't have a lot of iconic things that evoke the history and the culture and the continuing culture of our historically Black communities. And so I think that to me is really important. I know it came up at the Planning Commission as well, but it'd be great to have a commitment, baked into this process, that you all will work with the community to figure out like what can you do to make sure that this doesn't feel like it's just this new development from a bunch of outsiders, who that's placed in the community, but it actually reflects and is tied back to the community that's already there. and joins it as opposed to takes over.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Brian, or actually, sorry, Karen, you're number one on the hands.
Thank you. My question is about the townhouses. Are they rental townhouses or are they homeownership townhouses?
They'll be rental houses.
Okay, thanks.
Brian.
Thank you. So I just had a few questions and one concern. So you may have already mentioned it, but I just wanted to ask again, what's the period of affordability for the caps in this development?
The term?
Yes.
By county code, it's 30 years.
30 years. Okay. Is there any possibility, I think it mentioned earlier in the conversation, given the density of the project, typically you'll see, according to other instances, you'll get terms as long as 75 to 99 years. Is there an opportunity to investigate that, or is this kind of where we are in terms of how long affordability can last with the 30 years?
I think I would ask that question to Sarah, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Yes, no
Yeah.
problem.
I mean, for our site plan contribution units, as you mentioned, the code typically refers to 30 years. Now, when we're talking about committed affordable units that are funded through county funding, that's when you really start to see the 75 to 99 years. So as I'd mentioned earlier, for example, if they were to give a $2 million contribution on the base, that can be leveraged to do some of those longer term units elsewhere. Yep.
I see. That's something to keep in mind. A concern I have is in line with the chair's comments about trying to integrate this development into the community. And I align myself with a comment that one of our public speakers made, that building community and building trust requires more than a one-off community conversation, right? And so in trying to do outreach, I want to just be clear on how many instances of contact were made with relevant partners as we were kind of going through this process, because it would be very troubling to know that the county was really making kind of the most minimal effort to gain buy-in for something of this size.
We can share our community engagement slide again, but I'm not sure of the efforts of the county's community engagement outside of the public meetings we've had to date.
Could you share the slide again? That would be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we can do that.
And I do think it's a great question, and I appreciate the attention to it, because I think it is something that and sorry, actually, Zach, are you pulling up the slide while
I am while you're
well, I start the answer. Yeah. Community engagement to Matt and myself and our partners at Rock and Crescent was of the utmost importance at the forefront of this. And it was not just community engagement as in, picking up the phone and trying to get a Zoom meeting. While Zoom meetings are great and it allows for flexibility for more members to get into the discussion, we really wanted to be on site. We wanted to be walking on the streets. And, even though we already live in Arlington, we want to understand a little bit more of what it feels like to be in Green Valley and hear more from all community members. So thank you for pulling this up. So we started our outreach in 2024. It's hard to imagine because I thought in 2020.
Actually,
yeah, sorry, I think I just messed up, Matt.
Yeah, it was actually started in October of 2023. Yeah, and then our first meeting on site was in November of 2023. So sorry, Devin, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, but I'll wrap it up though. But yes, so we've had on-site meetings with community members at the hotel, at the existing hotel, as well as the Lomax Church. We also presented to the Green Valley Civic Association, and we've also just hosted meetings virtually, and we have had phone discussions with community members. And in every meeting, we reiterate the point that the conversation is not going to stop once if this entitlement process takes some time, but it doesn't just stop there, and that we'll continue to do that in every effort of the way.
Sorry, just one last quick question.
Of course.
Can you give me more details on the means which you advertise these outreach engagements? I just want to get a sense of how many people, for example, were attending these community meetings where you were reaching out to folks.
So when we had on-site meetings, a lot of it was also folks reaching out to us directly, which we really thought that was an exciting opportunity. And so it was community members that were just neighbors, Green Valley Civic Association, and Lomax Church members. And so in those meetings, we would walk the site, show the plans to date. And then I know after SBRC2 and before SPRC2 as well, when traffic concerns were continuously brought up, we really tried to schedule meetings so that we could have our traffic consultant there to walk through the report and follow up. I'm a visual learner, so sending slides afterwards as well, just to sort of try to explain further the mitigations that we're attempting to do here.
All right.
Does that answer?
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go with Joe.
Yeah, I got a couple of them. The more I listen, the more questions I have. My first question at the onset was, what is the square footage of the buffer area? What are the dimensions, or what are the square footage?
The square footage of the buffer, the total area is about 10,000 square feet. And then we actually have a slide showing the.
I'm going to pull that up too.
Pull it back up. Yeah, page 14 will help.
And
but
what's
we have
the
about,
width of it? Okay.
Here we go.
Okay, so.
And then Zach, it may be helpful to go to the next slide to show the existing first proposed.
See, I'm really trying to find the width of it. The width and the
Yes.
length.
Slide 35.
35 feet is the width?
So the proposed open space is 32 feet, plus the existing planted buffer, plus the proposed road. So the width with everything from our building to the property line, that is 81 feet.
81. Okay, so the street, and that street is, it said South Garfield. I mean, is that a new street, or is that's just the easement for the development?
Yes, that will be a new street. It is a part of the master transportation plan, and South Garfield is the new name.
Okay. Also, what are the and this is a market rate development. What are the do you have the rents? What the market rents are going to be? Can we see what the rents are going to be per bedroom?
So right now, yeah, we can't really share our rents to date, but I mean, they are a function of the overall market right now. We're working with a third party management.
And what's the function of the overall market right now?
So our rents are derived from the overall market here, and there's really, as you might imagine, there's a triangulation between several of the comps that are in the area right now. So it's not going to be too dissimilar to what you might see on Columbia. Pike.
Okay, so what is the comp for a 2-bedroom on Columbia Pike?
I mean, I would look to the newest delivery right now, which would be Westmont.
And what is that? Do you have that, or do I have to look it up?
I do not have that.
Okay.
Right now.
We can follow up.
Okay, yeah. And the other thing, if you could follow up, that would be helpful. The community engagement, and I think Brian, my colleague, dealt with that. Can you all give us the number of attendees at these events? How many attendees? That would be helpful if we could see the number of attendees.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
we have a word. Yep, no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Jason?
Thank you. Yeah. So I just have one question and a couple comments. Question is for the upper floors, is this a wood construction or concrete beyond the base floor too?
So it'll be wood frame over 2 to 3 stories of podium concrete.
Thanks. Yeah, because I know it's like 9 stories, so it's like, oh wow, it must be a fairly big podium, which I think will present a nice streetscape at least.
Yes.
Yeah, so the comments I have is just, first of all, I think I really like the brick facade here. I think that in many cases, like in North Arlington, it's perhaps overdone and looks kind of weird, but I think here it really complements the church. So I think it really, that one slide that you showed where there was the church and then the street and then the brick frontage, I think that really mirrored that well. So I really like how that was there. Next is just regarding the rents. So one thing about this building, it is constrained via units per acre density. So this building looks like about 100 units per acre, which, you know, compared to a metro building, you're getting 300. So, you know, that's not like super dense for Arlington. You know, it's about a third as dense as what we'll see, you know, in a metro corridor. I know it looks bigger because you have the, you know, the interior parking that goes, you know, fairly high up there, you know, a la Texas donut. So it looks bigger than what it actually is, but it's really not that dense. The second thing is that because it's units per acre, you know, you have really big units, which I think can be really nice because you get for Arlington, you know, you mostly have smaller units, but unfortunately that it does, you know, hinder like pricing. Like, you know, for example, you know, across the street, Bell Ridge, you have a 590 square foot junior 1 bedroom going for $220 a month. You know, with smaller units, you could definitely get a lot more affordability. You know, like even in metro corridor units that are FAR based, you can easily get units at 80% AMI or below at with no subsidies. So, you know, I hear a lot of comments about affordable housing, and it's like, you know, then this is not something that can be changed. But in terms of zoning, like if we want to really incentivize small units, then we could easily get, you know, a lot more studios, which would really enable, I think, at least 70% AMI without subsidy units, and then we could get a lot more subsidized at well 60 and well below with but still it is nice to have the larger units there for you know, even family sized unit, even the 2 bedrooms very large. I mean, very large. You can fit quite a bit more than, you know, a smaller 2 bed at like, you know, 600-700 square feet going up to 1,000, you know, 1,300. That's very, very big. So that would be pretty good. And then just the last comment, yeah, then, you know, the surrounding buildings too. I think the Dolly Madison Tower is going for 654 square feet, going for 2,000 a month. So, yeah, I think this project overall will definitely be really good. And just one thing on to in architecture, and you know, hearing the comments is that, you know, wanting, you know, affordability and then also like more architectural, you know, context things is like, and it's always a balance because, you know, the more you add in the cost, you know, if you really want to make a statement as you're coming in, and you know, the surrounding buildings don't really draw in a statement. I mean, the Bell Ridge is perhaps the most, you know, with the brick sidings, but none of the other buildings really draw a statement into the neighborhood. So, you know, like asking that and then also asking for affordable housing, that doesn't mesh. You have to have different balances. So I do think that this does a good match, and I think that overall, as this corridor develops and, you know, the walkability improves, especially on Shirlington Road, it will be really great to see this nice density and more pedestrian vibrancy to really go into these parks, go into Shirlington and throughout the neighborhood to really create a better pedestrian experience, and not just people driving through fast on Glebe Road, and hopefully getting that more density to get more investment into services and other things, especially, you know, next to the highway, you know, hopefully building that strong community and hopefully get some more, you know, the density will help, I guess, you know, perhaps shield some of the noise from the highway, you know, and I think that there's definitely a lot of potential here. So I think this is just like a step one in really creating that human-centric neighborhood environment. You know, not 100% perfect. You know, of course, there's going to be trade-offs, but I do, you know, admire that this project does aim to address a lot of the issues on on the housing that we really need. And I think in the future, as we think about really affordable units, especially in areas like this, if we're able to deliver 80% AMI unsubsidized units in North Arlington on a metro stop, I think we ought to be able to do that, in lower land value cost areas if we're willing to put in small units and incentivize that. So that's just something to think about in the future for Arlington's end. But I think overall this will help create the vibrancy, and I do appreciate the setback from the church, and I think it will long term, once it's finished and complete, and fill into the neighborhood help. So sorry I ranted, but thank you very much.
Thanks, Jason. Brian, did you have another question? Your hand is up. That could just be from before. So I'm going to do exactly what Jason said you can't do, which is there any possibility of adding an additional CAF unit to bring it to 10 instead of 9? Appreciate that it's beyond the required 7, but the need for affordable housing is great. And I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't at least ask, is there any possibility, is there any scenario where we get to a 10th affordable unit on the property?
I would say, yeah, it's a great question. I'll answer that. I mean, we can consider, continue considering additional scenarios here. But I think from the project team here, I think we see 9, especially with our current offering of 4 2-beds and 1 3-beds here, in addition to our 4 1-beds, as pretty adequate right now. Of course, I mean there might be scenarios that we can consider in the future here. So that can be on the table here at a later date.
Appreciate that response, which is basically like, maybe we'll see, but I get it, and I understand you guys are looking out for the financials of this project, and you have to make that work. My perspective is, how do we get the most for our community? So like I said, I think it's important to ask, and certainly if you guys can consider that, and as you're finalizing things, if there's a way to make that happen, the community would benefit from that, and that would be fantastic if we could have at least 1 more unit. But as Jason said, I understand there's trade-offs related to every decision like that, but I wanted to at least ask. Katie. Katie, you are muted, or at least we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Not sure what happened. So I heard that there might be some sort of contribution for a childcare center at Lomax. Is that going to happen?
So Lomax reached out to us, and yes, they did ask, but we're still discussing with them. So there's not a set value to that yet. They have a daycare connected with the church on their property. So it's the daycare and the church.
Okay, great. Yeah, would love to see any of those contributions happen. Community benefits, as some of the residents were saying. I'm not sure if I should have put my comments now or wait until we have the commission discussion.
Oh, no, this, yeah, any comments you have, now is the time.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I can see, I think this is providing much needed supply in Arlington, which I totally understand the concerns about gentrification, and I think this is a really sensitive issue. That being said, I think, even creating new market rate housing like this does tend to bring down the prices and just improve affordability in neighboring neighboring areas, just because otherwise the people who would be living there would be living in that older, more affordable rental housing that is then raising those prices. So it is needed. It obviously, I think 9 affordable units is, I think, good for, given the current constraints, but it would be better we need more affordable units, but that's a sort of a bigger issue of raising the affordable housing ordinance, which I know we're working on this year, as well as AHIF contributions and other issues. So, it is good to see that some of those are family-sized units as well. And in terms of I also echo what the other commissioners and public speakers said about trying to do whatever possible to try to make sure it integrates with the neighborhood and offers, that historical markers like murals, other community benefits that really show that it's part of Green Valley. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. Joe?
Yeah, going back to Ann Bodine's comments, I think Black home ownership since the passage of the 1968 Fair Housing Act has actually gone down. So I would be, in addition to raising from 9 to 10, why hasn't the developer looked at any homeownership opportunities primarily with the townhouses? And I think trying to listen to the needs of the community, and the gentleman that lived on that street or whatever that mentioned also home ownership. Is there any possibility? I mean, this is a big project, 500 units, going to be really robust rents. Developers don't like condos because it's a one-shot, profit. They're going to make more with the rents, but it is a big project. The community benefits are more, they may help some of the people in Green Valley, a bus shelter. That seems like normal operating stuff that you'd normally do when you build a development. But this is a huge, humongous thing at the gateway of Green Valley. And, I think they have they're raising a very valid thing about home ownership. So if there's a possibility for 6 home ownership units out of those townhouses, that would be, I think, a tilt in the right direction. Thank you.
Yeah, if you want, I could take that, Devin. It's a really good question. And of course, I mean, we as developers, we look at the sites and the projects a million different ways too. For home ownership, I mean, we see this offering as a rental townhouse as really offering up home ownership to folks that have been priced out of the market, right? I mean, and that includes myself too. I mean, I'm priced out of the market with rising interest rates, right? So I think we see this as attainable to a large swath of the market and the demographic, and they can get a 3-bedroom townhouse without the cost of a mortgage and the cost of home ownership here as well. So and that's not to mention access to the amenities as well. So I mean, we kind of see this as an additional offering that we're really excited about, because it kind of helps fill in a gap within the community, as you have pointed out. Devin, anything you want to add to that? Sorry.
I respectfully disagree. Rent is not the same as home ownership and wealth building.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions or comments? Danny.
Yeah, I just have a couple comments and a couple questions. In today's economics, financing a project at a scale is a massive undertaking, even for market rate. So I really applaud the applicant's effort, all the design intent and everything that's gone into it. Not to mention, this is really presenting as a gateway to the community and a massive improvement over what's there today. That being said, what is y'all's projected timeline for remaining entitlements, and how soon would this project break ground? Is my first question. Is the intent to build this as soon as possible in this current cycle, or I know it's an existing operation, so I don't know if it's maybe a longer play. And then on the townhome front, is there a plan to map these for condos, or is that something that could be added on later?
Well, to answer that, the first question regarding timing, yeah, I mean, we're looking to start as soon as we can here, and we're looking towards the to the end of the year here, late Q3, Q4. And I apologize. Your second question was if we're looking at condo conversion for those townhomes at a later date.
If that's something that is possible, or if that's something you're considering.
Yeah, Devin, you want to?
So our current programming and intent is to keep them for rentals, but per the conditions, we are allowed that flexibility. So in the future, we can have that option if we do decide to switch to condominiums or townhomes.
Thanks.
Other comments or questions from commissioners? Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, just a comment on the, I mean, just looking at what a market rate 3-bedroom townhouse would sell, right? There's a couple on the market for about 950,000. So I'm pretty sure that, I mean, just, of course, pros and cons by rent, but in terms of being able to access a 3-bedroom townhouse, the rental option is much more accessible. You don't need, the down payment for a 950,000 is much more harder to obtain than to rent an equivalent, what could be offered here, So I think, yes, I think there's just pros. I mean, I think, yes, it would be good to have the purchase opportunity, but in terms of just being able to access a 3-bedroom new construction townhouse at that 22,000 square feet, I think, someone that is going to have, $100,000, $200,000 of down payment, that's a lot harder to get than to simply afford, especially a 2-person household to, rent perhaps $3,500, $4,000 a month rental. That's much easier to do to access that. So I think there's pros and cons, but I think it could be good to have a rental townhouse option when there's a dearth right now, and especially when right now, if you want to rent a townhouse, you do have to rent from an owner. And as we've seen right now with the market, when you rent from an owner, that is not as assured rent. I mean, assured, what if they're overseas and they get called back? There's so many different things versus they're having an option to rent from this. There's a lot of benefits. So I mean, I just want to put that out there so it's in front of the commission.
Thank you, Jason. Joe, anything you want to add that has not already been said about that?
I understand what Jason's saying, but doesn't the county have homeownership programs? I'm looking at the Nash and Key across the street from my condo. I believe there's some county homeownership options in that condo, and it's far more than the 989,000 that Jason said. But doesn't the county have these homeownership programs that they put in condos?
I don't know if anyone from staff is.
Sure. If you're referring to our affordable dwelling units or ADUs, Key and Nash was an example of a ownership site plan that did contribute some on-site units. We haven't seen many ownership projects come in for a while. 2000 Clarendon was another one where we had a handful of affordable dwelling units, but those are the instances in which we're able to get those.
Okay, but I'm just saying that if to make this thing well accepted in the community, homeownership, and I go back to the first speaker, all right? We're putting this project in a Black community, and we're not doing anything addressing homeownership. So if the owners developed homeownership, I think they'd have a win-win thing, and people would bring them pastry on Saturday.
Thank you, Joe. I want to wrap up the discussion on this. Any final question or comment from folks on the commission? Okay, and just Jason, you still have your hand up, and Brian, you still have your hand up too. Brian, is that because you had a comment or nope? Okay, great. So we need to make a motion to recommend approval or not approval of this project. I recommend approving it, but I would also like to include in our letter that they continue working with Green Valley and the church around it could be public art, it could be something to better incorporate the community into the project in some way, as well as I think the additional CAF is something that at least we can recommend, even if it might not end up happening. Does someone want to make a motion, or is there any particular discussion on that before we do?
Hey,
Yeah,
Kellen.
Yep. Is that Zach?
It was Zach and Joe, but happy to go second or first. I don't care.
I defer to Zach.
Go ahead, Zach.
I had a question actually. So I saw the article a couple of months ago with a quote from the Green Valley Civic Association. Have they taken an official position on this project as of today? Do you know?
So I know Judith is on their leadership team. I don't know if, I think Sarah is the president and is raising their hand. So happy to have Sarah speak and answer that question.
Yeah, thank you. We have not. So we are all consulting. I know there's an upcoming meeting for I think April 5th. So we do plan on having a letter written, but we just want to make sure we are capturing as much feedback as possible beforehand.
Thank you, Sarah, for that additional information. Zach, was that your only question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then Joe, you were also going to say something?
Yeah, Cal, I would be more amenable to vote in favor of this if you could also say that the developers strive for home ownership options as possible, or make sure that those townhomes are built for conversion to a condo at a later date or something like that.
Yeah, I'm amenable to that language too. I think we can always make the recommendation and, yeah. Brian?
Yeah, and in addition to that, I'd also be more willing to support this if the applicant can make a firm commitment to integrate an interactive historical experience with the development. Because best in my recollection, there isn't a firm monument or historical exhibit showcasing the rich history of Green Valley that has been put into place here. We've heard some language over it in our conversation, but nothing that's concrete. And given that, as Joe has said, we are making a relatively large, not as large as some developments as Jason pointed out, but a relatively large project commitment here in a community that doesn't feel that it's been adequately communicated to, and we may do a significant disservice by not requiring a historical experience to be integrated into the project.
Thank you, Brian. I'm a little hesitant to get probably that specific, just because I think I'm more comfortable having Green Valley and the church work with the applicant specifically to decide this is what we want, to see, and this is how it's going to represent our community. But it would be nice. So, Devin, or I think it was Matt, maybe, how firm is that commitment to have some sort of cultural or art mural, something, working with the neighborhood and working with the church to make that happen? Is that just we're in discussions, it may or may not happen, or is that it's definitely something will happen, we just need to figure out what?
Helen, Brian, thank you. That is probably my fault for rambling. We are absolutely doing an art contribution that is approved. The only ongoing efforts is whether or not it's on our site or if it's on the Lomax site. So that's the only pending decision. And then obviously the development of the art.
Okay, thank you. Brian, is that helpful clarification?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so, go ahead, Katie.
Yes, and I know you said you're not trying to get too specific, but also if we could maybe add something about just, additional community benefits, such as, for example, contribution towards the child care center in Lomax. Just generally, you know, I know the community was expressing concerns about just having more community benefits.
We can certainly make that recommendation as well. The list is growing, but yes, we can certainly do that. And so again, Devin, just to clarify, what is the status of that conversation or that potential benefit with this deal?
We had a call last Friday with Pastor Nelson, and then we also received correspondence via letter and in person at the PC hearing, PC Commission. And so status is it's ongoing. So I don't have anything in finite writing yet.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Okay. Anything else that we would like included in our letter? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve or recommend approval of the site plan with the addition of the sort of cultural or historical something in collaboration with the community, the church and the neighborhood, the recommendation around the additional CAF unit, the recommendation around looking into home ownership opportunities at the site, and also the, supporting the childcare facility in some way in collaboration with the church.
Kellen, just a real quick question.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm good to like vote yes for all these things, but could it just be put in the letter, like for the conversion, I am concerned because we heard from the community, we want, the affordability is a big thing. And if you're forcing home ownership, you're going to have a much higher income households that will occupy those units if they are converted, because based on our price to rent ratio, I mean, it's going to be much higher unless you have a huge subsidy, which you don't really have the money for. So I'm happy to vote yes, but I just want at least in, the letter for the affordability, just to note that I think that, that I just wanted just to when you put that together. I mean, not say like everyone. I mean, I know the majority. I'm happy to vote yes, but I just really want that to be clear, because that to have pretty much they'll be $1 million townhomes essentially. So I mean,
I think we, Jason and Joe, we can figure out the exact wording that makes the most sense to say that we recommend looking into affordable home ownership options, whatever that may be, continuing to work with the county to figure out what that may look like. And that could be, years from now, because I don't think they're going to change it from rental to home ownership based on what we heard tonight. But encouraging them to look into that or explore that as a potential option, and just have the county have that on the radar as something that, as they're building out their ownership plans, as part of the, implementation of the homeownership study, that this is a potential site that they can look at in the future, where let's see if we have more tools available as a community to have affordable homeownership, that maybe this is a good place to look at, to exercise those.
Definitely. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Do I have a motion for that?
Yes, I motion to recommend approval of the project with those recommendations.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Commissioner Blake. Commissioner Coleman.
Aye.
Commissioner Fiaro. Commissioner Linick.
Yes.
Commissioner Macbeth votes yes. Commissioner McIlvray.
Yes.
Commissioner Montgomery. Commissioner Ross.
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz.
Yes.
Commissioner Surface.
Yes.
Commissioner Ventrone.
Yes.
Commissioner Wanger. Sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. It passes unanimously. thank you to the community members who provided their public comment. Thank you to the applicant and developer for presenting, and staff as well. Sorry we went a little bit over the time allotted to this, but appreciate the good discussion and looking forward to finalizing our letter for the board. Okay, thank you. Our next agenda item is the budget. So we're going to be looking at putting together our final budget letter for the county board. And Joel, who do we have from staff? Do we have presentations, or is it just answering questions? Or I think we have actual presentations.
We have Nicole Dula from DHS and Marie Randall from CPHD Housing.
Great. I don't know which one of you is going first. And also the person who's raising their hand who's on the phone, is that one of the commissioners, or is that a member of the public? I don't actually know what the number is.
I don't know. Is that Doris, maybe?
Good question. I'm not sure. But Joel, if there's any way to find that out, because they keep raising their hand, and if it's a commissioner or a liaison to the commission, I want to make sure that they have an opportunity to speak. If it's a member of the public, I would encourage them to wait until they have a opportunity for public comment on the next agenda item. So I can hear. Is that Doris? I can barely hear.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Who is
Hello?
this?
This is Commissioner Montgomery. I don't know. I just dialed in, and the way this system is set up, it won't let you unmute. I don't know if he's. Hello?
Yep. No, we can hear you. Sorry about that, Anika. Yeah, apologies. Didn't know that was you. And very sorry that you didn't get a chance to participate in the last agenda item. But now that we know that it's you.
I've been on the call, but it won't let you, the way, I don't know why the call is set up the way it is. Usually you could just unmute, but it doesn't give you the option to unmute, only to raise your hand.
Yeah, it's a security thing, since they had like disruptive people tuning in, I think last year, who would like take over the meetings and like say terrible, like threatening things. And so they locked it down so that if they don't recognize who you are, then you don't have the ability to unmute. So I will say for all commissioners, if you are going to call in, just make sure that you let, it would be Alex, in this case, Joel, who's filling in for Alex, know, so that they can make sure that you have the ability to unmute and say something if we don't recognize the number.
Okay.
But sorry about that, Anika, but glad that you're
No
here.
problem. Yeah. So I was just gonna just say my vote of approval. Yeah.
Okay,
For the
thank
last
you.
action item.
We will add you to that retroactively. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Ready? All right.
Ready.
We're FY26 budget presentation. Hello, good evening, Housing Commission. My name is Nicole Dula. I am the Housing Assistance Bureau Director within the Department of Human Services. I'm also joined by Marie Randall from the Housing Division, who will have her segment of slides intertwined. We are all things affordable housing, from bricks and mortars, supply, to opening access to residents in need, to services needed, and programs to complement those that we are serving here in Arlington County. So I am going to just cover the DHS housing portion of what's in the proposed FY26 budget for housing programs and services. Together, we collectively are representing 101 million commitment to housing is proposed between CPHD housing and DHS. So that's about 6% of the overall proposed county budget for this upcoming fiscal year. Next slide. All right, I'm going to jump into our locally funded program housing grants. There is an ongoing commitment to support this program. This program is, again, locally funded through Arlington County General Tax Fund. The program is specifically designed to serve seniors who are 65 and older, working families with minor children, Arlington residents that are disabled, connected to behavioral health. And we also are running a pilot for 12 youth aging out of foster care and transition age youth through our homeless system through the housing grant program. The program continues to experience exponential growth, as you can see from the chart here. Our caseloads for the program have increased over 19% over the last 4 years. We are projected to serve 1783 households by end of FY26. In terms, and that number is actually surpassed and exceeded our Housing Choice Voucher federal program allocations through HUD. So this program is taking shape as the lead housing program that we're offering at DHS. 90% of our 97% of our housing grant participants do reside in committed affordable units here in Arlington County. 87% of our households that are participating have incomes that are less than 30% of the area median income stream. So without the complement of this housing grant, many would not be able to afford to live here in Arlington County. So keeping residents who live and work here, who have children that go to school here, we are able to help bridge the gap for those at the very, very low income stream through the housing grant program. So the budget has a 2.5 million ongoing supplement, growing the program to a $17.5 million program in FY26. Next slide. Okay, this slide just gives you a glimpse of the population breakdown we serve by the categories that I previously mentioned. The yellow trend line shows you the number of applications that my team processes in any given year. It's an open program, unlike the Housing Choice Voucher program that we have. So applications are received daily, whether they're approved or denied. We are processing applications almost by the hour. So with the budget that will be over 17 million for 26, there is an increase to increase the maximum allowable rents for those participating in the program, which is fantastic. We love that, because what that means is that our grants can remain competitive for those that are able to qualify for the program, can lease within committed affordable units or other rental units in the market that are at the 60% area median income index. And that's the complement that we have as the maximum allowable rent. Let's see, I think we can go to the next slide. Just some next steps in terms of the future, what's on the horizon for housing grants. I think I was here last year where I might have talked about the housing grant study that the Department of Human Services undertook with the program. That report is still online to show you sort of some of the community feedback recommendations that were made as to how to expand eligibility for the program and where the program should focus. We are continually working on those recommendations in that report, in that study. Just recently, we've also undergone our first internal program audit, which should be released, I think, as of yesterday. So the program was audited for the first time, and to have been audited for the first time. There were no major findings, which is great, but there were some findings around quality assurance improvements that we're going to aggressively take care of starting in the next fiscal year. From building out SOPs, some of the audit recommendations asked for county attorney oversight, and some of the letters that we send out to residents. And there's a big call for us to really connect with residents better so that they can understand how to get through the eligibility process of the program. So some of that was also reflected in the study. And so with that said, through the county budget, there is also an additional FTE that will help support us with the connection to those in the community that need access to the housing grant program. So there is a 1.0 housing navigator that is proposed actually for to be filled in January of 2026, but it is in the FY26 budget. Similarly, there was recommendations to better report our outcomes through the Affordable Housing Master Plan to make sure that we're aligned. So we're working with the Housing Division on updates to that plan as well. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So with eviction prevention, within the Department of Human Services, we have a Community Assistance Bureau, and they've been forefront in the community, you know, even really remarkable through COVID, assisting residents with critical targeted prevention tools who are facing crisis and housing instability. You can see through this chart here in terms of the budget. Since the pandemic, we've had an influx of various resources of funding, right, to support residents in need. But majority of that funding has waned and has ended, but yet demand is still a need in the community. So there are trade-offs each budget cycle where, you know, if we continue to feed eviction prevention, of course, that the need will, you continue to feed it, the more the community will have a need for it. And I'll explain a little bit about that in a minute. But with the county, in terms of the sustainability of the ongoing budget to set aside for eviction prevention, resources, we've had to take a step down approach to balance emergency needs with available funding limits. So with this progression, we started in FY23 to force a cap on the amount of assistance that we would give to any one household. So we started with a cap of up to $3,000 a year per household. And once that 3,000 limit was exceeded, the household could not return for additional supports within that year. And our budget still continued to grow. So, you know, despite our best efforts to resize based on available funding limits, some of the DHS trends that the Bureau had been reporting was that they were seeing a trend of folks moving to Arlington with the understanding that there was this commitment of rescue funds. So we're finding folks that are coming into Arlington who couldn't afford the units that they were able to enter into, but yet were seeking ongoing eviction prevention resources from us and from DHS once they've moved to the county. So for beginning FY26, the proposal is to add another layer of requirement for the use of these funds where households must have a lease established in their name, and it has to be over 6 months to qualify for eviction prevention assistance. And of course, there's always going to be one-off emergency circumstances. So there we are allowed to make some exceptions to this policy based on extenuating circumstances. All right, next slide. So within the Housing Bureau at DHS, we also run our Housing Choice Voucher Program. We are recognized by HUD as a public housing authority. So we administer federally funded housing choice vouchers Again, targeted to really extremely low income. This is one of the deepest affordability subsidies that we have, where we can even support households that are at with zero income. The operating budget for our housing choice voucher is 29.3 million. 26.3 million is really for the rental subsidies. We did take earlier in the fiscal year 141 senior independent living vouchers transferred from Fairfax County to Arlington. It made sense because Fairfax was operating 141 units at Culpeper Gardens. So Martha and Marta's on the call. So we are now administering those vouchers within the Arlington portfolio. Participants within the Housing Choice Voucher occupy roughly 88% of, 88% of our participants reside in committed affordable units within the county. And I should mention that, our Housing Choice Voucher program also services participants that live outside of our jurisdiction, as our vouchers are able to be ported out to other jurisdictions with the Public Housing Authority after their first residency year is completed in Arlington County. Okay. We can go to the next slide. We have in the Bureau also just an update for permanent supportive housing, another locally funded and mixed funded with some state funds, a supportive housing program that supports residents with disabilities. They are provided case management service with a housing specialist that helps with day-to-day tenancy needs, as well as a clinical case manager for support. We are highly regarded by the state, leading in the allocations of our state subsidies. We've been doing this for quite some time. This is about a total of $7 million budget with all sources in operating, but in the FY26 for the county, we're looking at a 1.4 million increase. With our local program, we are sort of transitioning our model to become more state-led, as even though there's demand for the program, our caseloads are extremely high and outside, fidelity models, which is why that was depicted during our budget session. So we have really slowed down on the lease ups of our local supports here, given that the FTE structure would need to grow with additional placements that we make through the local program. And our state funded our state partners are actually able to increase not only our allocation, but also help support the the capacity needs that we need for the program. So, all right, next slide. This is my last slide. This is around homeless services in Arlington. We have an earmark for about $6.8 million for homeless services in the FY26 budget. Namely, this is everything from emergency shelters, supports for family and single adults. The biggest takeaway from the budget I can kind of add context around here is that Arlington County over the last year lost a family shelter with doorways. They've reconfigured their service model. So we had a number of beds that was devoted for family homelessness pulled offline. So we now are, through a competitive RFP, are trying to supplant and replace that loss through some scattered site apartments, non-congregate shelter. So an RFP was launched to build back the capacity around family homelessness support in the community. And I should say that our RFP awards were just announced today. So we are glad to have Path Forward back as a provider for our Homeless Services Center in terms of, as well as outreach, Bridges to Independence. It will be our sole family provider for Arlington County. Let's see.
Hey, Nicole?
Yeah.
Sorry, just quick question. On this graph, are these numbers, so like emergency shelter, single rapid rehousing, are these mutually exclusive, or are there's overlap of like you could have the same person served by the emergency shelter family and also rapid rehousing? So you shouldn't be adding them all together, or should you be?
No, you should not be adding them all together.
Okay.
So our index, the way this is reported, is our year end. This is our year round output. So if rapid rehousing at the end of the year, you're looking at that snapshot of households, right, that were served. And if any did graduate from permanent to permanent supportive housing, that's its own indicator. It's its own long-term housing. So you would count that separately. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. So just I'm going to wrap up in just a few quick points on what's on the horizon for homeless services. I just mentioned we have some RFPs that were 2 of them just awarded today, where we're going to have some expanded capacity around a service in Arlington County homelessness, both in shelter and non-congregate, which is great win for the county. We are experiencing an increase in older adults. Our homeless senior population nationally is a growing trend, which is expected to triple in 2030. So this is a rising trend we need to get in front of, and this has been communicated to the board over the last few fiscal year cycles through the budget process. Homeless seniors who are entering shelter have more acute needs, right? They have medical supports, and they may need assistance with grad bars or other supportive accommodations that are not adequately supported in a traditional shelter setting. So what's to come is a build out of more space, particularly at our housing homeless services center. We're anticipating having a wing as designated floor for older adults that enter homelessness that might need some short-term transitional supports, which could then move over to long-term care in other facilities. So we're excited that has been put through a capital improvement project for development in the next fiscal year cycles. Yeah, that ends DHS's budget update.
Thank you, Nicole. Katie, did you have a burning question, or did you want to wait until after CPHC goes as well?
It was a question on this slide, but either
Okay,
way.
cool. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, so thank you. My question is, I saw the percentage on the bottom left of the adults who experiencing homelessness are undocumented. Is that number actually 9, or is that?
Yes.
Okay, and that's a single adult. I'm confused about what the total is for that number. Is this single adults? Is this everybody?
So what I don't have here is the denominator for this, but of the, well, maybe it's elsewhere if we have.
It just seems like a low number. I was just confused.
Yeah, because if 88 is 26%, 9 doesn't.
And that is 55 and older. Let me check that stat of adults. And is it relative to 55 and older? That's a good question. Thank you for calling that out.
Yeah. And then I guess as a follow-up to that, in general, are undocumented residents served by homeless shelters, permanent supportive housing, eviction prevention, like all of these programs? Like, are they qualified to receive these services?
Undocumented, yes, we serve anybody from start with eviction prevention. We can assist anybody that qualifies, assuming they're under the area median income limits and the unit that they're seeking assistance for is within an FMR, right? Housing choice voucher, no. While our voucher, which is the federal housing subsidy, can be prorated for mixed household use, but any single adult undocumented would not be eligible without legal present citizenship status. Similarly, for our PSH program, locally funded as well as the housing grant program, There are some legal challenges around legal presence and whether we can extend our local subsidies to directly support, let's say, single undocumented households. We have not been able to do that in the past, but I think that's still a conversation that is before the board. But mixed household statuses, we are able to prorate.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. Marie?
Hi, everyone. My name is Marie Randall. I'm the finance supervisor for the housing division, and I have 3 slides for you about our AHIF, our program. So as you know, that our committed affordable units provide an important supply of rental homes for DHS clients, which Nicole just talked about. The primary goal of our Affordable Housing Fund program is to create and preserve CAFs for low-income families in Arlington, including DHS clients. And the county is a mission-driven lender, and AHIF is the county's main vehicle to both preserve and create long-term affordable housing by making low-interest loans to developers. With the program, the county historically has decided to use those funds as cash flow loans, meaning the county is repaid as property funds are available. And since AHIF's inception in 1988, the county board has allocated approximately $600 million for 125 loans. The most significant of these being the $150 million loan to help preserve Barcroft Apartments. And with this loan model, the county has received approximately $160 million in loan repayments, and 42% of the county's loans have paid in full. So the majority of the CAFs in our inventory are the result of county financing. The remainder are the result of site plan or other tools that we have. And while the majority of the county's CAFs are affordable in the 30 to 60% of area median income range, we also have some CAFs that are affordable at the 80% of AMI range. With the AHIF model, the county's CAF portfolio has grown more than 30% between FY20 to 24, from about 8,700 CAFs to over 11,000 CAFs. And during the same time period, the number of CAFs affordable to households earning less than 30% of the area median income has nearly tripled. Between FY10 and FY24, the county supported an average of 373 committed affordable units annually as a direct result of this county financing. And because of the board's commitment to AHIF, 12% of the county's rental stock is affordable to households earning less than 60% AMI, providing safe and stable housing for almost 12,000 low and moderate income families. So for FY26, the county manager's proposal is twofold. And first, there is $14.4 million for the AHIF program, which includes $9.7 million in ongoing funds, $2 million in one-time funds, $2 million from the Columbia Pike TIF fund, and $700,000 in federal home funds. Additionally, the county manager proposes $5 million to further pay down the county line of credit that was used to support the acquisition loan for Barcroft Apartments in 2021. Bringing the total proposed sources to $19.4 million in ongoing and one-time funds for FY26. There are additional sources such as developer contributions and loan repayments that supplement the annual general fund appropriations from our county board. And our online affordable housing dashboard helps illustrate how those sources have increased available funds over time. Whoops. And that's it for my part of the presentation.
Thank you, Marie, and thank you for explaining the AHIP breakdown. I know I had communicated to Anne that a lot of numbers have been thrown out over the last month of like, this is how much is being proposed for AHIF. I very much recommend that the county find one way to say every year, this is what we're proposing to AHIF, here are the different sources, and just stick with that way, because it gets super confusing, not only for the public, but I also think for the board, because we had proposed during the budget work session $21 million for AHIF. At the same time that staff was saying that I think $25 million was being proposed for AHIF, and the board members were like, wait, but you're asking for more money, so how much are you actually asking for? it was 8.6 million, but it gets confusing. So anything that can help make sure the public, commissioners, and the board and staff are all on the same page is super helpful. And I think having that consistency from year to year would be super helpful as well. So thank you for providing that explanation. So I know we have a couple hands raised. I also wanted to provide an update from Katie and I have been meeting with board members all week, and we have 2 remaining meetings tomorrow with Takis and JD. So I do want to update people on what we've discussed, what we've heard from the board about the recommendations that we've made. But I'm happy if people have burning questions for staff to have you go first, and then I can provide updates to help color the rest of our discussion tonight. Joe.
Yeah, could you go back to the second slide, because I'm still confused of what is the percentage of developer contributions? Like the Hotel Pentagon is putting in 2 million. I mean, what is the your second slide where you showed total, and then that one right there. This one right here.
Slide 11.
Yeah.
Slide 11. Okay. This one? Wait a minute.
Yep, that one.
Okay, sorry.
So where is the developer contributions? Where would that be?
In the cap total?
Yeah. And the HIF total.
Okay, so are you talking about the dollar? Where are the dollars, or where are the actual units?
Where would the dollars be? Or maybe I'm reading this wrong. This is just CAF, not
these are just CAFs, right?
Okay,
So
okay.
if we go to this one, it is actually the developer contributions would be above the 14.4 million. So developer contributions come in at various points in the project, and it depends, how many projects are going. We actually received projects were ahead of schedule last year, so we received almost 15 million in developer contributions last year, which means unfortunately this year our developer contributions are very sparse. But we don't lose that money; we just carry it forward.
Okay, so that 19.4 million would be bigger with the developer contributions.
Correct.
Okay, for public whatever. And taxpayer, whatever, you may, and maybe this is what Kellen was talking about, you may want to show that.
So we don't know exactly the number of our developer contributions until the end of the fiscal year. So we can talk about it more for the following fiscal year. So that's last year we received a lot, and then it's sort of booked. And this year we've received actually very little because things were so ahead of schedule last year. So actually Sarah, her staff is the one who keeps us informed of when site plans are, paying certain things, and those developer contributions are coming to us.
So if Hotel Pentagon gets approved, their 2 million would show when?
It depends when the 2 million is going to be paid. So there's some paid, maybe at the beginning of the project, some, at certain permitting, schedules, and then typically there's we know when it's ready to lease, then we'll get, and then sometimes when it's been stabilized. So it just depends what's negotiated.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Joe. Karen?
Hi there. Yes, thanks, Nicole, for your presentation. I have a question about housing choice vouchers. And their transporting to other counties. And the reason I ask this question is because I do work in home ownership, and people are always wanting to use their housing choice vouchers to purchase a home, and that is not possible in Arlington. And it is possible like in some jurisdictions like Prince William County, and I think Loudoun, maybe even in Fairfax. Do you have any idea how many people are actually transporting their vouchers to other counties? Or just a rough number? Is it a large thing, or is it just a sort of off?
I want to say it's less than 5% that have Arlington County vouchers outside of our jurisdiction.
So it's a very small number. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it really difficult? Is it difficult to do? I mean, it sounds like a maybe it's not difficult. I'm not trying to encourage people to do it, but but I'm always asked this question, and so I thought, well, now let me ask the.
No, so and it's not that Arlington can't do it. We can do it by, I think, CFR statute, the way the program is written in the legislation, it does give the Public Housing Authority the option to have vouchers convert to some form of support for home ownership. There are just additional steps in order that we would have to take to do that. I think it's like setting up certain savings accounts. There's certain additional programmatic requirements to do that. We would need to amend our admin plan or administrative plan, our policy that sort of will guide, the parameters for how we'll implement that here in Arlington. I'm not qualified on the specifics of that CFR regulations, but I could imagine that, it's not a subsidy that you can pay ongoing mortgage with, right? It maybe help with like escrow payment one time. And so with the cost of housing here in Arlington for home ownership, it's not impossible, but that conversion may be hard to do.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Katie.
Yes. Yeah, first of all, thanks again for the presentation, Nicole. And I know you have a lot going on. So, and I just had a general question. I know you mentioned a statistic like 20% of Arlington's rental housing stock is affordable in some way. Do you have for under 60% area median income, do you have a percentage of how many households are below area median 60% of area median income? Like is it just 20% or is it more than 20%?
No, so for if we go back to the housing grant slide, our participants, I think it was 97%, I think we tipped down, 97% of our households within the program have incomes that are at 30% AMI and below, which means
I'm sorry. I guess it was a more general question. I think someone, maybe it was Marie, maybe it was you, Nicole, had mentioned that of all the rental housing in Arlington, 20% is affordable under 60% for 60% area median income. I was just wondering for the demand versus the supply of that affordable housing, is it the percentage of households in the county that would need that versus the 20% that exists?
Yeah, I didn't hear that. Did either Nicole or Marie say that 20% of rental properties are affordable at 60% AMI or below?
No, I think so. One of the points that I had in one of my slides, was, and I don't know if this is, but while the majority of the CAFs are affordable at 30 to 60%, we just also have some at 80%. So I don't know what if that was something you were thinking of.
Okay, it might have been on the slide when you were talking about the supply of CAFs or just the stock of CAFs. And maybe I misheard. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, because I think, Katie, the goal in the Affordable Housing Master Plan is that like 17% of all housing in the county is affordable. So if we had exceeded that goal, that would be pretty huge. I don't think we have.
We have
All right,
not.
never
It's at we're at 12.1% right now, and the goal, correct, Kellen, is 17.7%.
There we go. Thank you, Jill.
Thank you.
Margaret.
Yeah, I just was going to follow up, Nicole, very quickly on Karen's question that in our admin plan, do we have a requirement of, like a year residency before any of those vouchers can port out?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
At least 1 year of a newly issued voucher off of our wait list has you must reside in Arlington for at least a year before you can pour it out.
Okay. Okay.
And Karen, I found the answer. It's actually 1% for vouchers are leased outside of Arlington. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. I had to find it.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm happy to provide an update on the conversations with board members, and then we can, get into more discussion and questions. So I also presented at the budget work session for housing on March 11th, and I talked about, our list, which was increasing AHEF to 21 million. So that was an 8.6 million increase over what was in the county manager's proposed budget. Talked about additional funding and investment for the Office of Human Rights to, one, expand their marketing around fair housing rights as well as violations, to make sure that people understand if you violate people's rights, we will come after you and hold you accountable, as well as just making sure that the office has all the resources it needs to process the claims, knowing that HUD is not doing that to a large extent anymore. Also recommended that the county provide adequate funding for implementation of our strategic plan to prevent and end homelessness. And we included, things like more short-term rental subsidies, like flexible rapid rehousing, supportive services, and resources, more behavioral health resources, and permanent supportive housing, and continued CAF production. We recommended the study of rent stabilization. We recommend that they not eliminate the principal planner position on the comprehensive planning team within CPHD, and then ensuring that there's adequate funding for eviction prevention in excess of the proposed 2.1 million in funding. So, as I said, Katie and I have been meeting with board members. Unfortunately, the budget is bleak. So the board received the third quarter update on revenue, which was, I think, for the first time in a long time, negative. So typically, when they get the additional revenue numbers during the budget process, like in between the manager proposes and the board makes their final decisions, they find out they actually have more revenue than expected. And that gives them some more leeway to add things back in or change things. So apparently this year they found out that it's actually worse than what the manager presented back in February. And so there may be additional cuts that have to be made. So that was sobering news. And I think this all plays into, we have a presidential administration that has declared war on our country and is attempting to dismantle our federal government and the programs that people need and rely on to go about their normal lives, as well as tanking our economy. So that's unfortunate. So as we've talked about, increasing AHIF, that seems unlikely. Again, I'm not saying that we should change the recommendations, because I still think it's important to say, here's what we think it should be. It's up to the board to decide whether that's feasible this year or not. But based on the conversations, so far we've not had any board members signal a willingness to increase AHIP this year, given the budget constraints. Providing additional resources and doing the marketing campaign for the Office of Human Rights. I think the board members we've talked to are very sympathetic to the fact that we need to be doing more than we are to enforce civil rights and fair housing within the county. Whether there's enough money to do a one-time funded marketing campaign, I don't know. There seems to be some interest in that among the board. Whether it will actually happen is unclear. The message that we have communicated is that if there is no more money for a marketing campaign to make sure that as the federal government stops enforcing fair housing, that the county steps up, that the board needs to work with the Office of Human Rights to make sure that they step up what they can do with existing staff and resources, because not prioritizing fair housing enforcement isn't working. It's not adequate. It's not serving the community well. And so that's been sort of the message, that if you can't provide any more funding or resources, then the board needs to work with the manager and with the Office of Human Rights leadership to figure out how we can do things differently to better serve the public when it comes to fair housing enforcement. When it comes to homelessness services, it sounds like, in addition to the 2.5 million that the managers propose adding, that the board is planning to add some additional money here. Maybe all of this is caveat, like this is what is potentially talked about, and I don't know if people are aware of like kind of the budget process right now. So the county board members are in the process of like sharing their budget amendments with each other this week and next week, and they'll finalize it, next week. So as they have priorities or things that they think should be changed, it goes onto this list, and then they negotiate and figure out, okay, what's going to end up in the final budget. So something may get added to that list that doesn't make it into the final budget, but that's what they're working on as we speak. So it looked like there was potentially some additional funding for homelessness services that was going to get added to that budget. Thank you for going on mute. But we'll see what ultimately happens. But that would be helpful. With rent stabilization, that would be one-time funding. There appears to be some interest. I have no idea whether or not that will actually happen. Whether that study will be something that the board asks staff to do, or whether it will be a third party, study. Both things have been floated, but no idea what will ultimately happen there, or if that will be included in this budget. When it comes to eliminating the principal planner position, my understanding is that the board is not going to make that cut, and that they're planning to save the planner position. And I don't know if there were two positions that were proposed, and one is planned to be cut and one is going to be saved, but at least one planner position I think they're planning to save. Again, this could all change. And then when it comes to eviction prevention, I think when we said ensure that there's adequate funding and access to the 2.1 million that is actually proposed, I was under the mistaken impression that the economic stability fund or reserve was money that the county would tap into this year as things got bad. That is not the plan. So that money is not meant to be touched. That is money to make our bond raters feel good about Arlington and not downgrade us. And it's there if we absolutely need it, but it is not. And if it is touched, it has to be like put back in. So my concern that I expressed to the board, I think Katie echoed this, was that for a lot of these areas, whether that be housing grants or eviction prevention or homelessness services, if we see a spike this year because the economy continues to head in the wrong direction, we continue to see mass layoffs and firings at the federal government and with contractors and all the downstream nonprofits and other folks who are related to that, that people are going to need more safety net resources in place. And I question, does it make a lot of sense to put this in a reserve we're not supposed to touch rather than put it in a fund that's meant to be used to help people? And that appears to be a question the board is actively wrestling with, of how do we be financially sound, but also make sure that we're, protecting residents and making sure they have the resources that they need. But that was something when we put together these recommendations, I was under the mistaken impression that, like with eviction prevention, they could just pull from that 33 million that the manager was proposing to plus that up if we saw a huge spike in evictions. That it doesn't sound like that's really what that's supposed to be there for. So that was concerning to me. And I wanted to make sure that you all were aware that, like, that economic stabilization fund is not really meant to be used to supplement these programs and safety net needs. So with all that said, well, and I will say too that I have another thing that that I would like the commission to add as a recommendation, and I don't think the board is going to go for this, but I do think it's very important, and that is adding a deputy director position to the Housing Bureau and DHS to look at, you know, whether it's homelessness services, the strategic plan, and all the things that need to happen to move that forward. Looking at how do we make improvements and efficiencies in the housing grant program? How do we move from paper checks to ACH? Looking at, you know, potential things like housing choice vouchers. How do we explore looking at home ownership opportunities with that program? All of that requires more resources at sort of the leadership level and the strategic level. That I think Nicole is doing a fantastic job, but Nicole's one person. And my understanding is the rest of her team is really focused on program execution. And there's not a lot of time for folks to think about how do we make this better? How do we save money? How do we make our resources go further? That it's like every day is we're just trying to respond to the massive need that we're facing in the community and get through, you know, all of the incoming requests for help and assistance that we have on a daily basis. So that's something that I brought up to county board members as something that the Housing Commission had not discussed yet, but that I think is really important. And so far, the board seems sympathetic to that. I don't think it's going to happen this year because they said that would be fantastic. We need that in a lot of places in DHS. We need that with childcare. We need that with other things too. So I think they're recognizing that the need is there for a position like that, but that they probably just don't have the ongoing funding to add that this year. But I still think it's important for us as advocates to say we recognize that there's a need, and we recognize that this would help the county do more to serve our low-income residents with all the things that the Housing Bureau is responsible for, you know, permanent supportive housing, homeless services, housing grants, housing choice vouchers, like, you know, et cetera. Questions and discussion after that update?
I think I'm also still a little unclear about the stabilization fund and what are all exactly the rules governing that and what could qualify as a reason to pull from that. I know some of the county board members said they were asking staff and looking into that. I know, Kellen, it's not it's not what we thought it was, but I'm also still unclear of whether, you know, a spike in evictions would make it possible to pull money for that, for eviction prevention.
I think it sounded like they could, but that there's a lot of incentives for them not to. So it's like if they needed to go to the economic stabilization reserve or fund, that's a possibility. Like the board has set policies on when they can access that. And there's certain economic conditions or emergencies that would trigger their ability to use it, which was also a concern for me that like if need spikes, but we don't meet the very specific policy requirements, are we saying that we have $33 million just going to sit there as people like don't get help? The board members we talked to seemed to think that there was enough flexibility with meeting some of those conditions that any scenario that would result in a spike in need would likely trigger it. But also that like they would have to put the money back within like a year or two if they were to spend it. So they would essentially be taking a loan from themselves to plus up these programs. And then the next year they would have to make sure that they put the money right back. So, you know, I had questioned like, why not just put it in the manager's contingency fund, which is more accessible and doesn't have those same requirements. And it seemed like that was a discussion that the board was having to figure out what's the best way forward there. But yeah, that was a concern that I had because misunderstood how the fund worked, and that it was a lot more. It was harder to access those monies than I thought, and also that, like, again, the main purpose of those is not to be spent and to make the bond markets just not downgrade us, which is important. You know, we don't want to lose our AAA rating, but I care more about like serving people in need than I do about, you know, bond people. But the board has to make that decision on what makes the most sense. Apparently, our reserves are lower compared to almost like any other locality in Virginia of like a similar size or something. So that's part of it, that I guess the county's been getting pressure for years to increase their reserves. Other questions, thoughts, anything that folks would like changed in our recommendations, or questions for staff?
Kellen, just a comment. I just first thank you and Katie for really going. I mean, the budget things is it's like so kind of crazy. So thank you for going to that. Yeah, just a comment. Yeah, it's just really hard in terms of us. You know, I know we're talking a lot about spending priorities, but I also think like it's important to keep in mind revenue. One of the things I did see as ARL Now article on increasing permit fees for multifamily projects and other, like deck addition, all sorts of things. And I think that that is a relatively small percentage. I think it's still, we look at revenue. I think that's something that maybe in the future years or to look at that and see how we're generating revenue based on property taxes and other revenues, and how that is an equitable lens of who that helps and who that doesn't help, and who that who benefits from certain revenue generation aspects. So I think that it's important that when we face tough economic times, we're not just burdening people at the lowest incomes and renters, especially, or newcomers, in order to keep perhaps property taxes low for people with, more means, especially we think about home ownership. Low property taxes, can capitalize into higher prices, kind of like how low interest rates increase the price. So I think it's just something in the future, but we want to get all the money for these services, which are really important. And I just, we got to, of course, keep our bond ratings, but it's just something in my mind I'm thinking about is, how we're making sure that we're not, as we're in this together as a community, and not just going to, go, I guess, the most, feasible ways. Oh, we're just going to tax, increase taxes on, renters or new structures or things of that nature, instead of, people that, could take more hits in terms of, they're, if you're in a, own a quite high property value, you could probably take more hits versus, a renter, that's more elasticity to get displaced versus someone that owns a larger property. So just some thoughts, but thank you so much for diving into the weeds on this and speaking with the county board members. Really appreciate it.
Jason, other comments, questions?
Yeah, I had just another just thing to consider that I brought up with the board members is, the possibility that certain federal funding will continue to be cut or not received, even if it was promised, such as the Section 8 housing choice vouchers, or such as funding for affordable housing developments that are even already under construction or already been approved, and they're counting on this funding. I know I was in a meeting with Navaja yesterday that they were talking about that as being a possibility. And obviously, that's like a catastrophic sort of situation. It's, not something, the board was very clear when I brought that up, that they don't have enough funding in the reserve or anything like that to cover and make up for all of those potential federal cuts. But I just, brought it up as a thing that that they should be aware of, and thinking that that might happen. And, if that does happen, are there more limited ways that they can try to make up for some of those losses?
Thanks, Katie. Joe?
Yeah, while we're talking federal funding, what happened with the county's FAP application? The courts ruled that HUD had to use the money this week. So I'm wondering if the county staff, if anyone there knows what the status is.
My understanding, Joe, is that zero action has been taken since January.
From the county standpoint?
Yes, by county staff.
Okay.
Yeah, I think when the board was talking about during the budget session, because the Office of Human Rights was included, we've been asking for that for years. So it was great to have Gurjeet present at the housing budget work session. Right now, I think the board is really concerned about that there's 2 vacancies and they need to be filled. They recognize that there may be other capacity issues within the office, but I think the priority is like, well, how do we even assess that when we have 2 vacancies?
Okay.
And I think the board seems to agree that we need to step up fair housing enforcement. That does not appear to have translated into action on the part of staff yet. And I don't know when that will happen. But that's something we're encouraging the board to work very closely with the Office of Human Rights to figure out how that can happen and what that looks like. I think becoming a FAP is probably one of the easiest ways for them to do that.
It is, and
they
it's
get
always
money.
it is, and let me tell you, based on my experience, it's always the small amount of federal money that is salvaged. It's the big stuff that gets hacked. So they'll hack the voucher, but this fair housing thing will probably go through. So for the county, it's free money, and I mean it's free money. The work that the county has to do, I think, is minimal, and I think it's a public service to people in the county to have it. But whatever.
Yep, we're continuing to push it. Yep. There's not much more I can say beyond that, unfortunately. Other questions, comments?
I also want to add, it's not like I don't want to create too much gloom and doom. Like we don't, we haven't heard news that they are cutting Section 8 or anything yet. So just that it's a possibility, but I don't want to like freak everyone out. Yeah.
I second that, Katie. We read the newspapers too much, and the newspapers are not totally correct. We have to read the court proceedings. That is fact. All right.
I think we're all hopeful that we won't suddenly force thousands of people, tens of thousands of people across the country into homelessness because we're getting rid of the housing choice voucher program. So as a country, that would be a very dark day. So is there a motion for us to do like our formal letter to the board that includes the recommendations that we've already made, plus the deputy director position for the Housing Bureau and DHS?
Make the motion.
Thank you, Brian. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. That was Jason. Right, okay, great. Let's do our vote then. I don't think Commissioner Blake is online. Commissioner Coleman?
Aye.
Commissioner Linick?
Yes.
Commissioner Macbeth, a vote yes. Commissioner McGilvray?
Yes.
Commissioner Montgomery? Anika, are you still muted? Okay. Commissioner Ross?
Yes.
Commissioner Schwartz,
Yes.
Commissioner Surface,
Yes.
Commissioner Ventrone,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wenger.
Yes.
Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you all. And I'm going to try to get that letter out tomorrow, just because the board is finalizing the budget literally like day by day, and there's limited time to get this in front of them before it is all final. Okay. Thank you all. And thank you to Marie and Nicole for your presentations and all the wonderful work that you guys are doing to help low-income folks in our community access housing and have more stable lives. It is very much appreciated.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having us.
See. Okay. Development updates. Joel, are you providing those?
Yeah, so staff doesn't have any development updates this month, but Alex did want to mention that if you're interested, to please reach out to him if you want to serve on any of the SPRC meetings that were listed in the development updates handout.
Sounds good. Thank you. And then our subcommittee and liaison reports, Brian for the Affordable Housing Ordinance Working Group.
So, a quick report, because this was our first meeting. Handful of the members were able to get together and first their interest in joining the committee, mainly around a review and revising of the Affordable Housing Ordinance. And we also discussed steps moving forward. Our next meeting is going to be April 15th. It'll be hybrid, but we do require a quorum. So I'm really hoping that we're able to get the most amount of people in, because it's going to be a very important meeting. We'll have a panel to discuss the history of the Affordable Housing Ordinance as it goes back to 2005, which will include a few of the members involved in the original drafting and discussion of that ordinance. So look forward to that. And that about covers it.
Thank you, Brian. And when is the next meeting?
April 15th.
Great. Thank you. Katie, do you want to update us on the Community Engagement Task Force?
Yes. So yeah, thank you to all of you who are participating in that. We had our first meeting on March 12th with commissioners as well as folks from other organizations who are part of it. And we drafted a work plan for the year, which I just realized I never I was asking for comments, but I never actually finalized the work plan because I didn't really receive too many comments. So I will need to send that out. But basically what the work plan says is, for the next several months until September, we are going to be trying to collect feedback from community members through, tabling at events, doing listening sessions in certain communities, getting feedback on, folks' concerns about housing, but really mainly, their experience with community engagement and what barriers do people face to participating in decision-making processes that the county is doing, and how can the county make that more accessible. So we'll be gathering that feedback. I've been, reaching out to some folks with AHC. We have a member who's part of AHC, and we are thinking about organizing listening sessions, as well as some other community groups. So our next meeting will be on, and also Joe and Nikki, I believe assisted by Kellen, are going to help organize, ideally help organize an event with county board members as well. Our next meeting will be on April 16th. It'll be in person with, hybrid option.
Thanks, Katie. Any update on SITSAC?
Just to remind folks that the bus tour is on the 2nd. So be at the courthouse at 6 if you're coming. Don't be late because we'll leave without you. So hope folks can join us.
Thank you very much. Joe, anything on the
Yep.
HALRB.
Yep, thanks to Alex, who brokered a peace agreement, almost like the Israeli Arab peace agreement. They will let me look at the agenda, and if we have anything to comment on, I will one-off comment with them outside of the meeting, something like that. So I got to relook at the note, but it's a short, a modest step.
Sounds good. Thanks. Thanks for continuing to push that forward, Joe. Nothing for Community Services Board. Katie, anything for C2E2?
No, but if everyone has interest still in the green building policy, I can reach out and make sure that before, when it's getting closer to the time of the county board hearing the new green building policy, we can have the AIR team come back and present again about the policy, and if we like, we can write a letter about it. Are people interested in that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we've already agreed that that's what we want to do.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll follow back up with staff just to make sure that we have the right timing on that.
Sounds good. Thanks, Katie. Anyone that I missed? Any updates on like SPRCs or anything?
Joe and I attended the 2500 Wilson Boulevard SPRC. On the sheet that was sent out by Alex, they have a different number of units than they talked about during the meeting. I don't know if they keep on changing the number of units, but I think the good thing that I heard from this meeting is that they have plans for 29 3-bedroom units and 43 2-bedroom and den units, which are large units that are like in the metro corridor. So they're not going to be affordable, but the good thing is that they are building more larger units because they said there's a demand for it, which I thought was interesting. And other than that, they're just hashing out other things at the meeting, like the entrances and the whatever loading docks and things like that. But I don't know, did Joe have anything else to add?
Actually, Karen, since you were there, I signed off because I thought I was going to do the historical meeting. And tonight I signed up for the Roslyn 1 SP review thing. And I listened to it, but I didn't participate. But I know the issues because as president of the Civic Association, I was already briefed and whatever. And the only controversy there's no affordable. This is a market rate. It is a glorious 3-story, two rental buildings, 1 tower of condos overlooking the new Gateway Park. The only big controversy is transportation, where the North Highland Civic Association wants the walkway to go over the east section of Langston Boulevard into the site development. And we in Roslyn got rid of all the skywalk. So there's a big controversy over transportation. But that's basically it. It's actually going to be a very nice development, and it will clean up the face of Roslyn, because now that the Ditmar project is done, the RCA project is well along. They're up to their 10th floor. It's really going to clean up the entrance to Roslyn and Virginia. It's really going to look good, albeit with excessively high rents.
Thank you, Joe. Okay. If there are no other updates, then we can adjourn our meeting. Thank you all, and we'll see you in May since we do not have an April meeting.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.